Okay, and I'm live. Hello, friends. Thanks so much for joining me on this video. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning on the Tuesday before we all go back to work after the Easter break. And I'm doing this as casually as I can because what I want to convey by this video is a simple and fundamental truth which applies to all of us. I'm calling this the most important currency in Africa and the world. So what is that? The point is that everybody in the world is busy garnering as many US dollars, pound sterling, European euro, Mzansi rand, Kenyan shillings, Chinese yuan. These days, increasingly, the ruble, because they're doing very well. Of course, in Africa, other currencies like the Kenyan shilling. In Ghana, it's the new Ghana CD. In Nigeria, it's the mighty naira. All of these currencies are the means by which we transact with the world. But actually, the most important currency of them all is your consciousness. Why do I say so? Because your consciousness is the means, the fundamental means by which you transact with the world. And if your consciousness is low, it means your currency, your fundamental currency, is weak. And if your currency is weak, it means that you have to work 10 times harder to create value, create actual wealth, create freedom, independence, well-being, and happiness than a person whose currency of consciousness is extremely high. So I'm going to post this thing on YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button and also hit the notification button. And I'm going to ask you to do that now, if I may say, you don't forget. And let's crack on with this. So when it comes to the matter of why your consciousness is so important, I just made notes about four very practical ways in which your consciousness becomes your major currency of exchange. First, if your consciousness is low, you cannot discern the difference between truth and fiction. Most of the narratives, speaking as an African, most of the narratives of my entire continent has been falsified by the powers that have been controlling Africa over the last 500 years. And so, for example, the truths of Kemet, call it Egypt, have all been falsified. Our history has all been falsified. And as they say, as long as the victor rules the roost, history will be his story, his narrative of what happened, not the truth of what actually took place. So that's truth and fiction. The second thing, gaslighting. You know, I think the most important thing about gaslighting is that somebody prevails on another to sell them a false reality. And they often sell them this false reality by shaming, guilting, or otherwise skewing their perception to make them feel that what they think and feel is wrong, whereas they're actually reading the outputs from their ISB, their soul, their lives. But the moment somebody manages to persuade you that what you're feeling isn't true, rather that what they're telling you is the truth, you're done. Your goose is cooked. You've been gaslighted, or is it gaslit? Choose your choice. So that's gaslighting. If your currency is weak, somebody will always gaslight you into behaving the way they want you to behave for their benefit and often in your personal disinterest. 3, of course, I've been through the whole thing about falsification of narratives, but the falsified narrative of current events is so important. in a system which is in the West largely based on democracy. Democracy doesn't rely on the wisdom in people's heads. It relies on the vote that they cast. And of course, the vote that you cast depends on your ability to 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 not only receive but interpret information. And if the information that's being fed you has been hugely censored to suit somebody, not necessarily yours, somebody's agenda, then of course um, this will affect the way you vote. And that's why false narratives become hugely important in democracies. And I'll just make casual reference to what's going on in Ukraine. I'll make casual reference to what's going on with stability or the lack of across the entire continent of Africa. By the way, what is curious is that what's happening in Africa is not too dissimilar to what is now happening in Europe, which is making the people who were told that they were those in whose image the rest of the world has been and should be created. All of a sudden, they're realizing that the wheels are coming off their wagons too. Long story short, we're all in the same boat. Finally, the thing that reduces your currency the most relies on a fundamental human need. No man is an island, it said, and we all like to aggregate, congregate, and come together in community. There is something incredibly comforting about being a member of the herd. Even if you're going to hell, you're not going to hell alone. You're going to hell in company. Nobody likes, as they say in England, to be a Billy No Mates. And so the desire to fit in amongst people is one of the means by which our consciousness is hugely eroded. Now, fitting in and contributing positively to the collective are two fundamentally different things. Fitting in is about being a member of a mindless, it could be very wise, but often a mindless herd, which is being led down a particular path. So something becomes fashionable, for example, in social media, everybody starts doing the same thing. That's the herd mentality. Contributing and creating value as a sovereign individual to the collective is completely different. Often you will come from a minority of one. But just because you're in a minority of one doesn't mean that you're wrong. All it means is that you have a unique perspective which you're sharing with the crowd. And as long as you're able to stand in that and do that, your currency, your consciousness will remain high. And so that's the long and the short of it. Please, by whichever means you use, raise and maintain your consciousness high so that you don't wind up being unable to discern truth from fiction, being gaslighted, following narratives which are entirely a tissue of lies, and also being exploited because of the very natural human urge you and I have to fit into whichever group that we have. Thank you so much for watching this, and join us for more later. Thank you.